Hello, everyone. Welcome to Donna's Happy Hour. I want to thank you for joining me. Today, I have a real treat for you. I have Mr. John Patrick Seekamp joining me. And John has recently written a book, which is published, and you can pretty much get it on all platforms. And I have to tell you...
Amazon only at this point.
Oh, Amazon only, okay. Yeah. But you can go to certain libraries within the Orange County, Sullivan County, Rockland County, and Ulster County. So if you live in any of those areas, you can get it at your local library.
In McAfee, New Jersey.
Oh, in McAfee, New Jersey. So anyway, you know, I have to say that the cover of this book is absolutely beautiful. And the story is, you know, one of my things is that I like a book that you can read. There's no violence. There's nothing political or religious about it. It's just straightforward, good reading. And the way you developed the characters, John, I loved. And I kept hoping that the story didn't have a sad ending. I was like, oh, I just love this story, that I just hope it has a happy ending. And it does. So without any further ado, I want to thank John for joining me today. John,
you're welcome.
Great to have you.
Yep.
And so tell me, you know, some of you may have noticed, because they've been following me a while. And I will also mention that John actually is my brother-in-law. So for years, you've been working on this book, correct?
Yes, 18 years.
18 years. And it wasn't until he said, oh, my book is published. And I said, oh, I didn't know you were writing a book.
I kept it hush-hush.
And and now you're working on a second book, I hear?
I started, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about, because it takes place, I'll let you explain to the audience where it takes place. I find it fascinating that you picked that area, because I know you've never been there.
No, I have not.
And what made you?
Well, I wanted to write a book about a grandfather and a grandson.
Okay.
That was a poignant story, and I wasn't sure where in the world that I wanted to place the story.
Okay.
So I was sitting at the library desk with the globe in front of me, and I kind of was just going like this, looking at different places, and I thought maybe Ireland, well, it's too familiar, so let me... And then I see India, and I kind of zeroed in on northern India, up near the Himalayas by Nepal, Tibet, Nepal. And when I started looking at in the gazetteer for the local names in that area, I was fascinated by them. So I thought after a lot of contemplation, Doon to me sounded like a really neat place and a name.
And everything, like all the other places, like the inn that you talk about, because there's an inn that's a major part of this story.
Yes.
Is that a real place, or is that just a...
That's fictional.
That's fictional,
Yep.
Okay. All right, I wondered
everything
about
is fictional in the story except for Queen Victoria, who I mentioned.
Yes, okay.
Queen Victoria's son, Prince Edward, who became King Edward.
Okay.
Who I mentioned. And the Governor General Curzon of India, who I mentioned.
Okay.
But every other name and part of the story, except for some of the place names, I made up.
Now, with the names, did you do research on that as well, so that they were...
Yes.
Correct, okay.
Yes.
I wondered about that.
Well, because one of the characters in the book, the woman in yellow...
Okay, yes.
I originally had her as Governor Curzon's niece.
Okay.
But then I thought, but people can check up on that. Wouldn't have been her name.
Right.
So
right.
I had it that it was a close friend of the family's daughter,
Okay.
and it was his niece.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I also want to talk about, for anybody that is thinking about writing a book, you obviously did a lot of research
Yes.
to get you to the point of where having it published.
Yes.
Is there any good advice that you can give someone?
Yes. Well, first of all, if you wanna write, just start writing. Just start putting words on paper.
Okay.
And you may not have an idea yet. You may not, but this is going to start the process. This is going to get your mind working.
Okay.
And then think about things that you would really like to write about.
Interesting. Okay.
And concentrate on that. If you need to do research, most of the time, even if it's something you're familiar with, you're still going to have to do research.
Okay. Okay.
But in this case, I had to do a lot of research, of course, to make sure I had all the facts right to place the story.
Right.
Which,
right.
by the way, takes place in 1901 in British India. At the time, it was the British were there.
Okay.
It was a colonial India.
Okay.
And it takes place in the foothills of the Himalayan mountains.
Now, my other interest and question to you is, who and how did you find who to contact to get the book published?
Oh, okay. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with a traditional publisher or a independent publishing house like Amazon,
right?
Say, which I wound up going with Amazon.
Okay.
I started looking online for different. When I went to the Amazon site, there were 3 editing companies that they recommended.
Oh, okay.
So
that's interesting to know. See?
Yeah. So I picked one of those.
Okay.
And it was Elite Publishing.
Okay. Okay.
And took it from there.
Now, how much money does something like this cost to get off the ground?
Okay, so
just so because as I said, as a matter of fact, we have a nephew who is writing.
Oh. Caleb.
Yeah, Caleb is writing. So this is good information for him to know.
Yes.
It's always nice when you can get a general idea as to how to proceed with something like this.
Yeah.
Because some people may be very intimidated that they've never done it before, and it just may seem so overwhelming that they don't take the steps to do it. Yes. So how much money would you say, John?
Well, I would say in the area of $5,000 in my case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so that includes the editing.
Yes.
It includes obviously, you had to have somebody design the cover.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And so that was through Amazon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Once it became published, Amazon has a site where you can pick different promotional ways to promote the book, ways to
they do.
advertise
They go all into that.
Yeah.
See?
But you have to put a lot of work into it yourself besides.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So all in, you say about 5,000.
Yeah, maybe a little more with, I bought a lot of author copies. So they give you the chance to buy author copies at the printing cost.
Oh, okay.
And then I can use them as giveaways or like I donated them to the local libraries.
Oh, interesting.
To get the book out there.
To get the book out there. Interesting. Yeah. All right. If let's say somebody is on a budget.
Yes.
What do you think the cheapest way for them to?
Well, you could probably get it published for under $1,000 between
Okay.
500 and 1,000.
Okay, so that's a big difference. See,
Yes.
somebody may sit there and go, well, I don't have 5,000.
Yes, exactly.
But if you can do it, let's say their budget is 500 or 1,000, or let's say,
Yeah.
1,500 or 2,000,
Right.
they can still manage to get this
Yes,
going.
get it edited and
get it edited. And
yeah.
now the cover, how did you come about the cover? Because the cover is really beautiful.
Yes, so the story behind the cover is I had my own idea. So I already had a preconceived idea of what the cover should look like.
Okay.
And I wanted a road going up through and leading into the mountains past the little house with the cart and the ox that's in the story.
Okay.
And and then they suggested this, the Amazon
Oh, they did.
suggested this, and I wasn't on board right away.
Okay.
But then I thought about it a little bit. I kept looking at it, and I realized this is the cover that I should go with. So this was a
Interesting,
designer at Elite
just gonna-
Publishing, I should say.
Okay.
A designer at Elite Publishing did it.
And I'm just going to hold that up again.
Yes.
It's a beautiful cover, and actually the back of the book is beautiful too. I feel that the colors draw you in.
Yes.
They really do.
Kind of subdued colors.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Some bread in the inn past the Doon.
Yeah, so let's get into the story.
Okay.
As I said,
Before I do that, I
right
want to
ahead.
give a shout out to the editor. I only know his first name,
okay,
Nicholas. I want to thank Nicholas because he was really helpful in me
wonderful.
in helping me to fine hone the story.
Fine-tune the whole
Because
thing, okay.
He actually said there's not much room for improvement, but so I took his suggestions and
wow,
there it is.
That's very nice.
yes. So thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. If it wasn't for your help, he may not be sitting here today.
Yes, that's right.
Well, so you wound up just looking at the map
Yes, the
your
globe.
little globe,
Yeah.
and that's how you decided where
Yes, to place the story.
where you were going to start the story. Very interesting. And now, did you do that with your next story, next book that you're writing?
No. No.
Okay. I was
I'll
wondering.
just leave it at that.
Okay. And is it a totally different?
Yes.
Okay. Is
Yes.
it? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Because I thought I don't want to get stuck in a rut doing the same thing
Right,
over and over.
right,
So.
right. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I used to, and I still do, but I always tended to like true stories, biographies, or even true stories if they were like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of gory, murder.
Okay. Mickey Spillane type.
Yeah, it was, the ones that are
Oh, the real.
the
right,
real, the
nonfiction.
nonfiction.
Oh,
Yeah, the real stories,
Yes.
and also anything that was paranormal or alien and all of that. And I still do love that, but I've gotten away from the real murder. I guess I guess that's normal. People go through stages in their life, and it's like I think that there's just enough violence or maybe too much violence, and I just don't really want to hear it anymore.
Yes.
This was a really enjoyable read. One of the ways I know, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, but this is the way I am. When I like a book, I take a very long time to read it. A lot of people whiz through a book that they like, but I'm the complete opposite. I take my time because I don't want it to end. And that's what I found with your book. It was like I truly loved as I said, and you're going to have to explain, I think, better from you than me, but the way the story starts is it starts sad, sort of sad. And so you just, my whole thing going through the rest of the story was hoping that it didn't get even worse, like it didn't, that the sadness didn't grow and grow, you know.
Yeah.
And
It kind of just opened up from there.
right, it
Yeah.
opened up, and it's truly a beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, go ahead. I'm going to shut my mouth and let you start.
Okay.
Take over.
Well, I'll read the first, before I get to the characters, I'll read the first part of chapter 1. It's just a quick paragraph.
Okay. That's
In the Himalaya, far above most of the world, there was sun and wind and cold. On the mountains, there was snow. In between the mountains, there were vast, thick fields of old ice. Pressed under the great weight, the bottom layers of ice would melt into droplets of water. The droplets would become trickles. The trickles would become streams. The streams would become rivers, and the rivers would become India. And then there was British India.
that's great.
Yeah.
Great way to start it.
I wanted to come up with a classic sounding
Yes,
beginning.
Great. I have to say, one of the other things that I liked too is your description.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for somebody that hasn't been to India, you know, and doesn't know really much. You know, about it, you brought it to life, which was really nice.
Yeah.
You know, that you made the person feel like they were actually taking that journey
Yes.
with this family.
Yes.
You know,
A daily up and back journey.
Daily. Yes, it was.
Yes.
So go ahead and explain to the audience about the story.
The story opens, there's a young Hindu Indian boy named Manendra, and his parents were tragically killed in a marketplace bombing by political separatists who were extremist Muslims, which kind of reflects what's going on in the world today.
Right.
And I don't want to disparage any particular religious group. It's just this is things that did happen.
Right.
And so the parents were killed tragically, and the boy, fortunately, was off playing away from the marketplace at the time.
Right. He didn't witness.
No, and when he came there and actually saw his parents laying there, it really affected him.
Right.
And so he was put in an orphanage in a Christian missionary for a while, and then he was granted by the courts permission to go live with his maternal grandparents in northern India, further from Delhi, where the boy lived.
Right.
His parents lived in Delhi. And so he went to Dehra, which is in the foothills of the Himalaya mountains, and lived with his grandfather and grandmother, Shandan Shri and Padmaja Shri,
Right.
were their names.
Okay, good. Well, you know, I didn't do so bad. You know, I was telling John, I said, I'm going to let you, you know, say the characters' names, because I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm pronouncing them in my head, you know, if I'm pronouncing them correctly. I did darn good.
Yes, you did.
I did. I'm impressed. One of the things that I loved about the story is how the grandfather and his grandson, they didn't get to spend much time together prior to this incident.
That's
of
right.
his parents being killed.
Yes.
It was a situation, you know, the grandfather had to be nervous about it, and of course the child, even though those were his grandparents, were nervous about it.
Right.
And the development of the relationship is just so heartwarming and so beautiful, and it shows you, you know, that love conquers all.
Yeah.
Truly.
Well, he was the boy was numb in the beginning.
Yes.
He was very numbed.
Yes.
And so, but the grandparents were too, because let's face it, it was their daughter and son-in-law who died.
Right.
So the healing was not only the boy's, going up, living with his grandparents and trying to heal. It was them. The grandparents were also healing.
Right. Yeah. It was everyone there
Yeah.
was going through their own, and also, let's face it, now they have the responsibility of raising their grandchild.
Yes.
And but the grandfather, you got to love him because he's so down to earth and just a good man, and we've got dogs in the background. But we are outside, so if you see fish jumping or dogs barking
or geese flying in,
as long as they don't poop on us as they go over, we'll be good. So, but yeah, I just absolutely loved the development of and even with the grandmother, because in the story, every day the child would go with the grandfather to work.
Yes.
Basically, that's what it was.
By ox and cart.
Up
a winding dirt road up into the higher foothills.
Right.
Along a stream.
Right.
And so all these things that would happen along the way up and then on the way back.
And on the way back. The one thing that I kept. I don't know if this is because when you read books, usually, it can take a turn for the worst. Yeah. And I kept thinking about because a lot of it was in the summer and the heat.
Yes.
And they would stop along the way at any lakes and streams and ponds and get water. And, they always made sure that the ox had water. And but one thing that kept running through my mind is, I don't know how old this ox is. I'm like, is he going to drop dead? And I'm like, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. And thank God it never did.
No.
And I was like, oh, please, John, don't take us there, that the ox dies on this road, because it was quite a, travel.
Burdensome,
yes, yeah.
Burdensome.
Yes.
So obviously where they worked was the inn Himalayan.
Right.
And they would clean up the lawns and.
Right. And take them, Menendra's grandmother would cook baked breads.
Yes.
And so they would take breads to the inn. So, that's also part of their job.
Yeah.
Plus also cleaning up the yard for the inn.
Bringing firewood. Mostly for campfires.
Right. Yeah. Because, of course, the inn was mainly, it had wealthy people coming to it.
Yes.
That's one of the interesting factors here that you brought into this story was the relationship of the guests.
Yes.
To which that was an interesting part of the story, where Menendra and his grandfather were, I want to say, belittled or by that one gatekeeper or something.
Yes. The little man Jennings.
Yes. Yeah. And
Shandon Tree.
Was so always, how do I want to say, gracious maybe, or he saw through what was going on with a person's personality, and always tried to find a way to teach his grandson not to get bitter, not to take it personally, maybe, I guess.
Yes, I would say.
you know, and without saying, oh, that man's just an idiot, or that man, you know, he never did that. He always diffused and thought about how his grandson was going to perceive things in the future.
Yes.
That was very interesting, which I think maybe a lot of that might have been based on your relationship with your dad.
Yes.
Because your father was very much like that.
Yes.
You know, that he tried to teach all of you kids good values. I don't know how well he did with Tim, but no,
we all gave him.
Kidding, dear.
We each gave him a
run for his money.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, he's one of 9, so my mother-in-law and father-in-law had their hands full, needless to say. But all of you kids turned out great, so they were great parents. And I can see a lot of how your dad would have explained something.
Yes.
And am I correct about that? Is that where you feel?
He had his moments.
Well, he's human.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 9 kids. I think I would have been bonkers. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, they had patience, especially my mother. She really had patience.
She really had patience. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Your mother was amazing. So let's get back to the story, because I could talk about their family forever.
Right.
But yeah, so. Take us through.
So the owner of the inn was very tolerant. He was very tolerant.
He was very tolerant as well.
And he was a Hindu.
And kind-hearted.
Yes.
He was a good-hearted.
He was actually a prince, a Hindu prince.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
okay.
but he kind of poo-pooed that. He didn't really. He wanted to be more of a businessman, and he was educated in England.
Right.
So he kind of took on the persona of a British nobleman, really.
Yeah, you actually, if you didn't remind me, I completely forgot that that part of it. Yeah.
So.
And he was very good to Manendra and his grandfather.
Yes. And so he was tolerant of he didn't like the caste system.
Right.
But he still had to adhere. You know, he was part of India, so
he was right.
So there were restrictions, even though he allowed Chandan Shri and Manendra to come up. They weren't untouchables. They weren't the lowest class.
Right.
But they were in the middle, kind of.
Yeah, they were. They certainly weren't the elite.
No.
They weren't.
They were
street people either.
Right.
They weren't.
They were the working, really the kind of the lower middle class, but not the very base in the Indian caste system.
Right. But at the same time, they had their place.
Yes.
They had their place when it came to being there and respecting.
Yes.
You know, this basically the caste. You know. The system.
The system in that time period.
Right, in that time period, yeah.
Which is completely different now.
Right. Well, I don't know about that. We
not
don't
completely
know about
different,
that
but it's opened up enough that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's still some brutal treatment of
people.
Yeah.
Of people. Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt that it's not totally gone.
Yeah. So I want to read the dedication because I think that's important. And I put, to all the good people of India, regardless of faith, and to the memory of my parents, Johnny and Gert, thank you, Mom and Dad, for without your love and understanding, this story simply would not be. And that's, the truth. Very true, yeah. So I wanted to acknowledge the good people of India. Right. Right. And, you know, that's like anywhere we are, you know, we have good, we have bad. Yep. And I guess that's what makes up the world. Yes. You know, that's all you can say. And hope that people can find their way through it. Yes. You know, and you know, look at a situation and say, you know what?
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, or it's one of those things. This is a funny story, but how it relates, I guess. I had been called for jury duty. And, you know, you have to fill out the forms and,
Yeah.
you know, do you think you can do this? And do you think you can, you know,
Right.
and you answer all these questions.
Yes.
And anyways, but so you have to go. And then they call you up one at a time. But in the beginning, they tell you, okay, what the charge is for why this person is, you know,
Before the court.
being brought, before the court.
Yeah.
And so they had mentioned 5 different reasons why this man was being, you know, charged. And so I thought to myself, 5 different charges.
Yes.
And when they finally called me up, you know, they said, do you think that you could, you know,
Be biased.
be unbiased, you know,
Unbiased,
and
unbiased.
yeah, and so I said, well, let me get this straight. I said, he's brought up on 5 charges, correct? And they said, yes, that's correct. And so I said, well, I'm thinking that he's probably at least guilty of 1 or 2 of those things. And the guy that was being brought up on the charges started laughing like hell because he knew I was right. I'm thinking, you know what I mean? But it was funny as hell. So you have to look at a situation and go, okay, some of those charges have to be true, you know, that he was guilty. You know, if it would have been 1 or 2 charges, I probably would have said no. You know,
you could be unbiased.
I could be, yeah.
Yeah.
But 5 charges.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of stacks the deck against them.
Yeah, I was like, I'm thinking you're probably guilty of 1 or 2.
Meanwhile, he was 100 miles away at the time.
Yeah, really, right. No, he wasn't, and he knew it too.
Okay.
When he burst out laughing, I was like, and I looked at him like, oh my God, you know. So yeah. Anyway, but you know, to get back to the story, that's the same thing. You know, you brought into the story what was taking place at the time, you know. So that was somewhat factual things there too.
Yes.
Is that wasn't totally made up.
Right.
There was that sort of thing going on.
Yep.
And the grandfather, like I said, the way that he handled, you know, teaching his grandson, you know, to always try to look at the situation from a bunch of different angles, you know, and to use judgment and, you know, be kind and, you know, so is there anything else that you wanted to mention in this story here that?
Yeah, let me see. Well, as far as writing it, when I first started writing it, I just used torn off scraps of paper. And
Oh, no kidding.
And I probably had a stack of them like this, and I realized from all the corrections that I was doing, I was running out of room on the paper, and I thought, I better start writing this on the normal size pieces of paper.
Right. I was going to say.
And then I typed it from there, and I used the typewriter.
Okay.
This is before word processing was popular, and so I had a typewriter, and
was it an electric typewriter?
Yes, electric. It wasn't electric with the cartridge, but I still had to make corrections. I would get ahead of myself or decide to change something. So it was very, it was labor intensive.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, and confusing too, because I had stacks of paper. Which one is
my gosh, really? Yeah. So that's a learning process for you, for any writer, I guess. Then is to don't write on little pieces of paper.
You could start out that way, but transition pretty quickly.
Transition to the big pieces of paper.
So with the word processing, with the computer,
Right.
now you can have a keyword search. So if I wasn't sure if I used a word properly,
Okay.
or maybe inserted a word
Right.
that I didn't want in there,
Right.
I could just put that in the keyword search and it would find it anywhere in at least if not the whole book, at least in that file.
Oh,
It would find it
interesting.
show me the page, it would highlight it.
Highlight it. Wow.
And so that made it easier to
Made
make
it easier.
corrections and to make sure all the ducks were in a row.
Wow. Oh, interesting. So not only did you learn prior to getting to type it,
Yeah.
then once you got to word processing, that was a whole new education, I'm
Yes.
sure, too, in and of itself.
Had to be careful not to hit the wrong button and delete everything.
Oh, my gosh.
My computer crashed a few times and I thought I lost everything.
Oh, my gosh.
And luckily I was able to recover. And
So the other thing that I was wondering, like some of the streams or were those actual real
no,
stream names? No. Okay. All
no.
right.
I
Okay.
don't think I ever named the stream. So that kind of got me out of that. I just
okay.
mentioned that
Okay. I
there was a
wasn't
stream.
sure if you had. I thought maybe I'm wrong.
The lake, small lake and big lake.
Yes, that's what. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, small lake and big lake. That makes sense.
So
Okay.
it's all snow melt from the higher up Himalayan, snow-covered Himalayan mountains.
Wow.
And that's what feeds India. That's what
Wow.
the Ganges and the
Wow. Interesting.
different rivers.
Yeah,
The Indus.
it was very interesting, John. And as I said, and I kept waiting for the shoot, even actually when they met the British
Captains. Yes.
And there were these 4 British captains that were, I guess, on their way to the inn.
Yes.
And their cart broke down.
Yep.
And they had some booze with them, and I was like, I don't know where this is going, and I'm hoping it's not going where I think it's going. But they actually were very nice there. It shows that, their hearts were in the right place, and they met Manendra and his grandfather, and actually that was a touching story, part of the story too, because as I said, I was kind of wondering, oh man, knowing what Manendra had gone through with his parents, the last thing that you wanted to see was him losing his grandfather the same way he lost his parents, and you didn't go that road, so I was happy about that.
And then when he made friends with the 2 little Muslim Van Gujars.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That was really.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It was, as I said, it's a wonderful story. It's a easy read, but I took my time. And as I do with all stories that I don't want it to end, I take my time reading them.
Yes.
But it is a very easy read, and it's as I said, a lovely story, and I'm glad that it didn't have a bloody ending.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, oh, please don't do that to me, John. But the other thing that I found interesting was the chef at the inn.
Oh, yeah.
He was a sweetheart, too.
The big chef, Chef Pudamji.
Yes, Pudamji.
Jagapreet Pudamji.
Oh, my gosh. And I will tell you that John does have, at the beginning of the book, all of the characters' names and their relationships, sort of, or what they were, or what they...
I put them in context. So some of them were spoken of, and they weren't actually in the story, but they were spoken of. Oh, right. So I mentioned that in the character description.
And And as I said, you know, you can pronounce these names any way you want when you're reading it, you know, because, you know, there's no wrong or right, I guess, you know. But I didn't want to get their names wrong since I know what you know. And so I did pretty good
Yeah.
with the names.
Let me count the characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23,
Maybe
24,
we're sorry
25,
he's going to count them.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30,
Wow.
31, 32, 33, 34,
Wow.
35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52,
Wow.
53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, at least 65 characters.
Well, I have to say that I never would have guessed there was that many.
Yeah.
You
okay.
know, and the way that you brought them into the story, because some of them, like, were not major
Right.
characters. You know,
Right.
they were just
Ambient.
in a part of the story
Yeah.
for a short period of time, and then you moved on to. But the main character really was the grandfather, the grandmother, the innkeeper, the owner of the inn.
Ashti Mahandu.
Right, yeah. Those were the main characters. And also their relationship to Menendra and his grandfather was,
Yes.
how do I want to say, well developed.
Yeah.
Well
okay.
developed. Because you got to see what they were about and how they too thought of the way you would treat other people.
Yeah.
You know, that was the thing.
Yeah.
In Bali, or Bali, I don't know if, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it.
Either way.
I was watching a program and they were saying how over there, there really isn't like a lot of theft.
Right.
And the reason being is because the people there believe in karma.
Yes. What goes around
And
comes
what
around.
goes around comes around.
Yes.
So you really don't have to worry about it there. They were saying it's really a very nice place to live.
Shame is important to them.
Yeah, shame is
not being shamed.
Right, yes, yeah. So, and that's kind of how your story kind of went. It was, you know, they wanted to be treated a certain way and would treat other people, you know, it just
Yes.
So yeah, I loved it, John, I really did. And not because you're my brother-in-law, but
But that helps.
but that helps. No. But I did enjoy it, and I know everyone else that reads it will. And so just
Thank
go
you.
over where again they can find your book.
Right. So it's listed on Amazon, Some Bread and the Inn Past the Doon by John Patrick Seekamp. So you could put in John Patrick Seekamp. If you just put in Seekamp, it'll come up.
Right.
Or Some Bread and is all you need to put, and it comes up on the internet.
On the internet. Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's just enough words that it triggers it.
Triggers it. Yeah.
But also, if you're from the mid-Hudson of New York State, the Pennsylvania area, New Jersey,
Right.
even Connecticut, you can get it in 13 different libraries in that lower New York State, New Jersey area.
Right. Right.
And soon
That's
I'll be
great.
putting one in the Hawley, Pennsylvania library.
Oh, good. You did. You contacted them?
Well, I'm going to drive over there and
Oh, you
and
should.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you absolutely should.
And I
Yeah.
want to get one in Connecticut, in Massachusetts, and most of the states.
Right, right. It makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
the more you can distribute it and get it out there. How about now? He did a book signing, which was fantastic. That went over really well. Are you thinking about more of those?
Yes, I
or-
contacted a few libraries, and I'm a terrible promoter, but I'm a good writer, but a terrible promoter.
Well, there's
So-
an art to promoting, you
Yeah,
know.
so I have
and
to
it's
get the ball.
time consuming.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah,
Yep. So that'll be next.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get
and
different.
try to get some newspapers
Yes.
to do a story. You know, they're always looking
Yep.
for,
I missed the opportunity the last time where I had the book signing in Middletown, New York, Jay's Place.
right,
Very nice restaurant.
very nice restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the hill, below where his restaurant is the Times Herald Record. And I didn't contact them to let them know I was just up the hill.
Right, yeah.
So that was a
'Cause
missed
I'm sure they would have,
opportunity.
I'm sure they would have come out because when I lived in Wurtsboro,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you had heard this, but at that time we had a wood stove, and we weren't thinking too smart, Tim and I, and we stuffed the wood stove, and, you know, and the wind was really bad,
Okay.
and it started
Backdraft.
backdrafting
Oh.
into the house, and
Gosh.
thank God I had two little Yorkies. And the one, Minuet, she knew that something was wrong, and she came up and she was tapping me on my face, and she kept tapping me, and I finally I drowsily, so the smoke must have already been
Filtering through.
Well, it was filtered through all right. I opened my eyes and I had the nightlight in the bathroom, and I see smoke. And I jump up and I'm like, oh my God, the house, I thought the house was on fire. That's how much smoke it
Yeah,
was.
wow.
And so I contacted the newspaper and I said, my dog saved my life,
Yeah.
and would you be interested in doing a story? And they came.
Wow.
The reason that they wanted to do the story is it was that time of year when people were going to start firing up their wood stoves and their fireplaces, and they, felt to get the word out, to make sure that everything's working before and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
But so anything like what you did, that would be ideal.
That would be of interest to the readers.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and you could always maybe do another book signing at Jay's Place. That was a nice spot.
Yes.
And then get a hold of them.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
Is a thought. Well, I don't know what else you would like to say about the book. Maybe do you want to talk about the next book, the one that you're writing, or
Well, it's not fully developed yet. So
yet? Okay,
yeah.
so we won't talk about that.
Now I do have prior to this, years before this, I wrote a children's story,
Oh, really?
and that's actually complete. So I have to bring that out of mothballs. I may try to get that published first.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Oh, wow. So, can you talk about that one?
well, yes, it's a kind of a poignant story. A little boy named Mel
Okay.
who jumps up and down on a trampoline, and he's an expert at it. So I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, funny. I've actually written short stories. I always just found, for me, that's the way I like to go. But I actually have one that I would like to develop more, and and maybe I will, you know, because as I said, I always liked short stories when I was a kid reading those, so that's kind of what I leaned to. But also the fact that I'm an artist, so I like to draw and make up characters.
Yes, yes.
And that was something I always, So yeah, maybe John, you'll have to get me motivated and steer me into the right direction there.
You a little bit.
Yeah. Because I mean, you just never know. There's so many. Look at what's her name, the woman that wrote J.R. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
I mean, that was years her developing that book.
Yes.
And and then
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
It seems to me it had something to do with a train the first time I ever heard about it. Now, I could be wrong about that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just found it fascinating that she would dream it.
Yeah, wow.
That's how she wrote the story. And what's interesting is when I was a kid in school, I want to say first or second grade, maybe third grade, the teacher wanted us, the assignment was to write a story using a lot of descriptive words.
Okay.
And so I went home that night.
Right.
I didn't write the story that night because I fell asleep.
Oh.
But I had a dream.
Oh.
And the dream is what became the story. Became the story. And I have to say, it was a really good story. It took place in a zoo. And so with all the smells and sights and sounds, so I could use all these really descriptive words, and it was so good that the teacher called me up to her desk and she said, Donna, did you really write this?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, I did. She didn't believe that I did.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, I had a dream.
Oh.
It was my dream.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it. And the interesting thing is that the dream, when I woke up in the morning, the reason I woke up that morning is because I heard water running.
Oh.
Somebody, my bedroom was right near the bathroom, and I heard the water running. And so that's what woke me up. But that's how I ended the story, is that, I heard running water, so I was running towards the water, and and actually the water was my mother in the, like running the water in the, something like that.
Right, right.
It was really I wish I would have kept that darn story.
Yes.
At that age, you don't think to keep it,
Right.
And I did get an A on it. I don't know if I got an A+, but I did get an A on it. And that would be a great story to
develop.
Short story or develop. Yeah. It was great. Well, I want to thank you so much, John, for coming, and I will never look at the globe the same way.
Okay.
You never know. Maybe I should do that, just go like this and point and say, okay, so I'm in Habagasha.
Right.
And I'm going to write a book, a story. But I give you really a lot of credit, John. We're very proud of you for doing this.
Thank you.
And you did a great job. Not too many of the reviews, I have to tell the audience, the reviews on your book, phenomenal.
Okay.
I mean, you got wonderful reviews.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I didn't see anybody that badmouthed it.
Yeah, no.
It truly was.
Yep. There was one on Goodreads. The woman spent time in India.
Okay.
So she didn't like my spelling of certain places.
Oh,
Well, I went
okay.
with, on purpose, I went with older spellings
Right.
because it's a fictional story and I wanted to give the feel of that time period
Right.
when either spelling was used.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I used the older spelling
Okay.
for Delhi.
Right.
I had Dehli,
Right.
Delhi,
Right.
instead of Delhi,
Right.
Delhi.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
And for Dehradun, it would have been, now it's spelled Dehra, let me think, Dehradun. Dehradun as one word.
Oh, okay.
So I have it as two separate words.
Two separate words.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and of course, as you said, this was somebody that, you know,
Yeah.
felt you were doing sort of
she called it misspelling, and it was actually intentional.
intentional.
So,
intentional. Wow.
But it was still a good enough 4-star instead of 5.
Right. Oh,
So-
okay. All
So
right.
it wasn't terrible, but
Right. Right.
and that's her opinion. So
right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I would think, did you contact her or do anything like that? Or?
I don't know if I was supposed to, but I let her know that it wasn't a misspelling; it was on purpose.
Okay. Oh, good. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Well, because you were both right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you did it because you wanted to take it back to that time period,
Yes.
which is how they pronounced it or spelled it.
Yep.
And she was thinking current.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so,
Yep.
which it wasn't. It's not a current story.
Right.
It's, you know, so.
So-
Yeah, there's so many things that, as a writer,
Oh yeah.
that you have to take into consideration, even though it's a fictional,
Right.
you know, story. It's like, wow.
So
you know.
you can get away with almost anything with the dialogue, but
Right.
with the narrative, you kind of have to stick to, the norms when it comes to writing,
Okay.
because you're presenting the story, and when the characters are speaking, then that's their words, so that's their thoughts in their words. So you have a little more leeway with the characters.
With the
can
characters.
Yeah, that's what the character was thinking. That's what the character said.
Right, right. Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I kind of let the characters write the story. So
Right.
I didn't have a preconceived idea of where this story was going. I would just let the characters decide,
Wow.
I see something off in the distance.
Right, right.
And then that would develop from there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fascinating. It was, as I said, heartwarming. And yet you developed certain parts of it where, you know, to me, you know, I was like waiting for the shoe to drop, which, as
never
I said,
did.
I was pleasantly surprised. Overall, I suggest highly to anybody, you know, if you're looking for a good read, you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And again,
Some Bread and the Inn Past the Dehradun by John Patrick Seekamp.
and as soon as he gets either the story that you wrote years ago,
Right.
or this new one, we will have you on again and, you know, do our thing here. But I want to thank the audience for joining us. And as always, be safe, be happy, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.